It's now been over 5 years since the announcement of the next game in the Mass Effect franchise. In the years since that announcement, I have graduated high school, gone to university, survived a global pandemic, lost gallons to Liara, and graduated university. So safe to say it's been a while. But the game doesn't feel any closer. No new announcements, no new trailers. The industry has kept moving forward with some incredible games releasing, and yet the realm of sci-fi RPGs is still one in recent years that has been incredibly mediocre. Damn near 20 years after the release of the first game, and modern releases still pale in comparison to what Mass Effect was able to achieve. I want to look at what we know about the current state of Mass Effect 5, its options in terms of story after the ending of Mass Effect 3, and the state of their developers, BioWare. Their ups and their downs that have led to their current shaky position in the industry. So, based on what we know, what can Mass Effect 5 actually look like? As I'm sure you know, Mass Effect 3 came down to 3 endings: Destroy, Synthesis, and Control. I guess 4 if you want to count the ending where you shoot the kid for some reason. Both Synthesis and... oh my fucking god. Both Synthesis and Control lead to Shepard sacrificing themselves to stop the Reaper threat. This also meant that the Reapers weren't killed in either of these endings. Keep that in mind. Destroy was the only ending in which it was possible for Shepard to probably live. And it was also the one in which all the Reapers were killed alongside any other artificial life. From the announcement trailer, we see Liara on some snowy planet and a fragment of N7 armor in the snow. This obviously led to speculation that Shepard survived the Crucible detonation. This also immediately signaled to most people that the utopian Synthesis ending likely wasn't canon, as Liara notably lacks the weird green traces and green eyes that everyone gets from that ending. Although I will note it's possible that the green stuff is just retconned out, as everyone looking super similar is obviously not good character design, so Synthesis is unlikely, but possible. Control, as far as I'm aware, seems to be a viable option too, as we've yet to see any concept art showing dead Reapers specifically, only dead Geth. However, the recent concept art released on N7 Day only seems to show more fighting between the different races in the galaxy, seeming to show that the races are not united under Synthesis, and that the Reaper's knowledge doesn't appear to have helped bring about galactic peace. But even without the recent concept art, the fact Shepard took a breath at the end of Destroy just cancels out the other two options for me entirely. So, in my mind, Destroy makes the most sense. But feel free to berate me in the comments. But now we're left with one question. How do you continue the story from there? From where I'm standing, I think they've got 3 main options, but each of them have serious problems. The first and most obvious is Shepard surviving. Set the next game a few years after Shepard's death.
Shepard, it's me!
Have them come out of hiding for some new galactic threat, maybe even something from the Andromeda galaxy from before the Arks arrive. The main problem with this option is that you're incredibly likely to piss off existing players, as unless the game is absolutely massive in scope, it will need to confirm which characters are dead and which are alive, unless they write them off in some way. This sucks, because in the worst case, I believe the only 2 characters that can survive are the 2 squad mates you bring during the beam run, with everyone else being killable at some point earlier on. Or, in the best case scenario, the only squad mates you're going to lose are either Ashley or Caden on Vermeer, Morden curing the Genophage, Thane on the Citadel, and Legion on the Quarian homeworld. So unless the devs take the time to allow save importing from Mass Effect 3, most players are going to be annoyed. I mean, it's not like they gave a shit about our choices come the end of 3 anyway. I'd also be worried that Shepard would be written worse this time around, if BioWare's recent work is anything to go by. I can't wait for the non-binary Shepard reveal.
So, I'm non-binary.
Shut your fucking mouth!
The second option fixes most of these problems, but also causes more issues. Performing a time jump. Have Shepard's legacy carry the galaxy forward a few decades or a few hundred years, and allow a new protagonist to take over. It would mean you wouldn't need to account for squad mates surviving, only needing Liara to stick around due to her being Asari and living for hundreds of years. It would allow new companions, weapons, mechanics, and more to be established within the existing universe. But I'll be honest, I seriously hate this one. It didn't work for me in Andromeda, and I doubt it would work here. All the player is going to do is compare this new protagonist to Shepard, meaning any slight weakness is going to be put under a microscope, to the detriment of the rest of the game. Thirdly, I've got sort of a hybrid option. Have Shepard live, but have Liara take over as the protagonist. Ah, come on. You have an established character that the fanbase already loves and who's been featured prominently in the announcement trailer. Why would they not put her to use? The story could center around her hunt for Shepard, who's gone into hiding after the destruction of the Reapers, assumed to be dead. You could bring in new or established companions, although it's risky as we previously discussed with option 1. However, I feel it could be contextualized as Liara was likely not as close with some of the squad mates as Shepard was, meaning they wouldn't follow her into battle. It would allow for the trilogy's story to be continued in a natural way, with a character that players are far more likely to get attached to, as opposed to some rando like Ryder in Andromeda. While this is essentially fantasy booking, EA and BioWare have publicly stated that they are very focused on the next entry in the franchise and are committed to seeing it through to completion. So it's just a matter of time before we know for sure which way the story is headed. I've seen some speculation around a 2028 or a 2029 release, but it could even be later than that. Now, little chud, let's not get too excited. This is still EA we're talking about. Let me tell you about the reality of this game's development. BioWare has been on a pretty public downward trend since the release of Dragon Age Inquisition back in 2014. Their recent releases have included Mass Effect Andromeda and Dragon Age the Veilguard, certainly two of the games of all time. It's been almost 9 years since the release of Andromeda, and as much as the game was absolutely torn apart on release, it suffers from something that I think is far worse than being a bad game. It's mediocre. Being just okay is basically a death sentence in the games industry in current year, especially when you're following up a franchise as legendary as Mass Effect. At least if you're the funny Golem game, people remember you for a little bit. But the only lasting effect Andromeda had was making players miss the original trilogy more than they already did. And I want to clarify, I don't dislike Andromeda, I actually quite enjoy it. But unfortunately for BioWare, I wanted to rizz up mentally ill women, not colonize planets. I understand they were trying to do something new here, hence why it was named Andromeda instead of Mass Effect 4. But regardless, it did some serious damage to the reputation of the franchise, and more importantly of BioWare. Then in their never-ending wisdom, they chose to follow it up with Dragon Age the Veilguard.
And I'm going to use they instead of she from now on.
Dear God, I think if I asked ChatGPT to make me a game, it would be better written than this. The game has quite possibly the worst dialogue and most insufferable characters I have ever seen. The rest of the game is, again, just okay, but when you're following up Inquisition, just okay may as well be a kick in the balls. This signaled to me at least that BioWare, or what's left of them, have gone off the deep end, making short-sighted moves in the interest of the almighty shareholders. The last thing I want is for Mass Effect 5 to be just okay. Knowing them, they'll probably lock the canon ending behind some $15 DLC. Lock the Tally romance behind a DLC and I'll burn the studio down myself. These recent flops from BioWare led to me digging into what's actually going on over there at the studio. Much of the old guard of BioWare is just gone. The co-founders of the studio retired back in 2012. It's been 14 years. Fucking hag. Casey Hudson, the director of the original Mass Effect trilogy, left for the second time in 2020 alongside Mark Dara, the executive producer of the Dragon Age franchise. Finally, many acclaimed writers and creative directors have either left the company or been laid off within the last 5 to 10 years. Thanks, EA. Very wholesome 100. This is where my concerns for the future of the franchise lie. The game is seemingly being headed largely by people that did not work on the previous games. And based on the Veilguard and Andromeda, they don't seem to care about doing them justice. There were over 400 people working at BioWare when Mass Effect 3 released, and they now sit at 100. 3/4 of the studio has either left or been laid off entirely, probably by some fuckwit CEO who wanted another 7-figure bonus. But don't worry guys, the project director of Mass Effect 5 is an industry vet, known for producing incredible games like Mass Effect Andromeda and Anthem. We are so fucked. It's not all doom and gloom, as there are apparently some actual industry vets working on this game. For example, Derek Watts, the art director for the original Mass Effect, and Parrish Lay, who worked on all 3 games in the trilogy doing animations and cinematics, just to name a couple. These are people that actually know these games inside and out. I trust them to do the best that they can to make a great game, but what I can't trust is management. It's no secret that EA is just about as bad as it can get when it comes to companies in the gaming industry. Their constant hammering of microtransactions, live service elements, and profit-first systems are universally hated by everyone with more than 2 brain cells. Sorry, 2K players. They've made it very obvious that they serve the shareholders. Not me, not you. and not any fans of the original trilogy. In recent years, we've seen a heavy-handed shoehorning of modern trends and agendas in the interest of increasing review scores and generating more profit. I love large corporations. My favorite part of video games is being talked down to by arts majors and money-hungry sociopaths. I attribute the recent rise of AA studios to moronic decisions made by companies like EA. Studios like Larian and Sandfall have bucked the trend of recent AAA slop. No agendas to be pushed, no mechanics that exist only to make money. Just incredible pieces of art and storytelling, like it used to be back in the day. I have no doubt that there are people working at BioWare right now that adore the original franchise, that want to do it justice, but they are unable to because EA has its priorities in the wrong place and is squandering the talent they own. I can't wait for the announcement in a year's time, talking about how the game is built for a modern audience, and if you pre-order, you'll unlock exclusive choices in the story. I just want a faithful continuation of one of the greatest sci-fi franchises to ever exist. I really do hope BioWare breaks the cycle of mediocrity and gives us a banger of a game. And until we get another announcement, I guess that's all I'll be able to do.